Megan and Hannah, are we ready? Okay. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the All In for Kansas Kids biweekly webinar. It is March 9th, 2022. I am Debbie Deer, the Early Childhood Systems Coordinator, and am joined today by Hannah McGahee, the Early Childhood Workforce Coordinator, and Megan Broha, the Early Childhood Systems Specialist, and we all work for the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund. And so for today's agenda, we will have our general system updates on trainings, programs, and funding opportunities that are currently available to you and the children and families that you provide services to. And then Kim Polson from the Community Children's Center of Douglas County will be presenting on going beyond the pipeline to bolster early childhood systems and infrastructure. And then that will be followed by our tomorrow's mini sense making session with Jenny Flinders from our KUCPPR team. Moving into our general updates, the kindergarten readiness subgrants, the application process is now being accepted through March 18th. And this opportunity continues to be a part of the 3-year federal funding for the All In for Kansas Kids initiative, which is administered by the Children's Cabinet. These grants are available for up to $25,000, and their purpose is to improve kindergarten readiness in communities across Kansas. And so you can see here the types of key partners in kindergarten transition planning that would be eligible to apply. And some additional eligibility would be 501c3 organizations, community-based organizations and libraries, school districts, Head Start programs, city and county governments, universities, and KDHE licensed childcare facilities that serve birth through age 5. And so you can apply on the Kansas Common App on the Children's Cabinet website, and Megan is putting these links in the chat for us. And technical assistance is also available at all times throughout this application process. So please go to the link and check this out and see if your program is interested in applying. On March 1st, the Sustainability Grants Round 3 began, and this is an exciting opportunity for a new period of grants for childcare providers. It's available through a partnership with KDHE and Childcare Aware of Kansas. And these applications will be accepted through November 30th of this year with an eligibility of up to 14 months of payments available. And so you can find the link to this in the chat. And I hope that many of you will be able to look into this opportunity to benefit the important work that you are doing to provide care for children in Kansas. We want to announce the upcoming Kansas Association for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Annual Conference, which is scheduled to happen on April 28th and 29th, and that is via Zoom. And then there's also a pre-conference book study that's available also on Zoom with Dr. Mona Delahook, who is our keynote speaker there. And she's a pediatric psychologist and author, and that book study will happen today, which is March 9th, and then April 13th as well. So there's a link in the chat that you can go to for more of that information. The Ages and Stages questionnaire training will continue in April and May on the dates that you see here in front of you for both the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2. And you can access information for these trainings on the TASN website. A child abuse training is available through the Kansas Children's Service League, and these trainings do qualify for child care licensing hours. The dates for the upcoming opportunities in March and April are listed here, and you can see that those topics include ACEs and resilience, and then adverse childhood experiences. And then I would recommend going to the link provided to register, as well as look at some other opportunities that are available as well in addition to these. Camp GWC 2022, which is formerly Growing with Children, is going to take place on April 1st and 2nd this year. Each year, over 350 professionals from across Kansas come together for a full day of learning and networking, shopping, prizes, and fun. And licensed childcare providers can receive up to 7.5 hours of in-service. And scholarship opportunities are also available for licensed childcare facilities. So that scholarship would cover the cost of registration, and that is through Casito. So you can go to their website and look into that as well. Mental health first aid training is being offered through the United Methodist Health Ministry Fund as part of their work. The Governor's Commission on Racial Equity and Justice included this training in 2 of its behavioral health recommendations. And these are offered at no cost, and the space is limited to 15 participants per session. They are scheduled through May, but stay tuned because additional trainings might be scheduled in the future. So you can go to the United Methodist Health Ministry Fund's website to find out more and to register. March is National Nutrition Month, and so the Child Care and Adult Care Food Program, which is known as CACFP, is a federally funded program that provides reimbursement for meals to children and adults. And I am sure that there are many of you listening in today who either participate in this program or are already familiar with it. But if not, please know that this is a huge benefit to those of you who are providing meals and snacks in your programs. Benefits are also available for reimbursement for providers with breastfeeding mothers. And trainings are available both for participation in the program and how that works, and then also other nutrition related topics all the time. And so you can go to the link provided to join this program, and you can also call this number that's listed here. The Kindergarten in Kansas booklet is available for distribution. These booklets provide information on kindergarten readiness, transitions, checklists, and more for families and caregivers. Paper copies are available in multiple languages, and you can request a copy at the link that's provided. And I know that I just drove by my neighborhood school this morning on my way to work, and they were advertising their kindergarten roundup that's coming up next month. And so it's definitely that time of year. Kindergarten transitioning is definitely a year-round activity, as we learned from last webinar we had. But these booklets, I think you will find them very helpful. The second round of at-home COVID tests are available starting this week. So households can order their second set of free at-home tests. You can get 4 of those per household. And you can call this 1-800 number that's listed here, and also go to the link in the chat for frequently asked questions and to order them online. We always like to share information with you about the ongoing work of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. Those will be on the 3rd Fridays of every month from 9 to 11:30. This month, however, we have moved the meeting up to March 11th, which is this week on Friday due to spring break next week. And so the meeting is scheduled this week from 9 to 10:30. You can watch those live on YouTube on the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund website. And we always encourage you to let us know about the work that you are doing and how the panel can help with that. So you can contact me at any time at this email listed here if you want to provide feedback or comments to the panel in our open forum comments section. Friday's meeting, the agenda will include a final review and discussion and vote for approval on the work group recommendations that have been taking place over the past few months. And then the focus work groups will start phase 2 of that process to identify new focus areas and potentially develop recommendations for the future consideration. And then adjournment is scheduled a little early this month for 10:30 a.m. And so now I believe we are ready to go into our program segment. And I want to introduce Kim Polson, who again is with the Early Childhood Community Center for Douglas County. And she's going to present on the early childhood professional life cycle. So Kim, are you with us somewhere here? I can't see you.
I am, yes.
Great. Hi.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go from there. Is everyone seeing the PowerPoint presentation? Yes, great. Wow, that was seamless. That never happens. Thanks for the opportunity to share our vision with the group today. Again, I'm Kim Polson, the Executive Director of the Community Children's Center in Douglas County. My colleague Marie Taylor, who is the director of our Provider Academy piece, is also on the call today. Beginning last summer, community stakeholders in Douglas County began the collaborative work towards an early childhood community center for Douglas County. And Community Children's Center is the nonprofit organization that is coordinating and leading this cross-sector effort. And this work grew out of the All In for Kansas Kids needs assessment and strategic plan, and also our county's community health plan to reduce poverty, where one of the focus areas was children and childcare, including the childhood care and education workforce. Okay, sorry, my presentation, there we go. So I do want to share with you just a little bit of context around the project itself, in that we took those strategic plan and our community health plan to reduce poverty and developed a three-pronged model to try and attack all of those areas in a coordinated but very targeted way. So first, there'll be a family resource center, which is a family resource center to wrap around services to make sure that we can meet families where they are. And we're collaborating with all of our community organizations to do that, so we're not duplicating or reinventing the wheel. The second, Provider Academy, which I mentioned, to recruit, educate, support, and retain early childhood professionals. And again, we want to do this in collaboration with those at local and state levels. And then third is what we're calling the 3A HQ project. And that is to increase the number of accessible, available, and affordable high quality childcare spots across Douglas County, particularly for infants and toddlers. And this project will also include a business incubator model where Provider Academy participants can then move on and begin their early childhood careers with all the additional supports of this model available to them. So our efforts involve a broad community-based big picture perspective. And we apply that perspective to the life of our early childhood professionals as well, which got us to where we are today. Talking about career metaphors, you know, we often talk about careers over time. And the metaphors we use often are the provider pipeline for early childhood. But again, as we look at the photo, that path is straight and rigid with one starting point and one ending point. And we know from research and the stories that our professionals share that that is rarely the path taken in early childhood. Now, if we talk about a career pathway, this allows for some twists and curves, maybe some pit stops along the way, the ability to get on or off the path entirely at any point. So this is definitely more reflective of many professions and definitely the early childhood profession. But as we all know, early childhood is a bit of a different beast. It's not a subject matter that you learn in elementary school when you discover, oh, you have an aptitude and an enjoyment from math or from science. We find our way here in a different way. So we began to think, again, from the broader perspective about the life cycle of the early childhood professional. And we wanted to look at how and why people are introduced to it, why they're drawn to the profession, and why they hopefully stay engaged. in early childhood over the lifespan. We identified existing systems that can support career choice and began to dream about the future systems that make it even more likely that the early childhood professionals will remain in the field. So we broke it down into 5 different stages of life. And we often talk about, when we do mention the professional pipeline or pathway, we usually begin late adolescence as they begin some career exploration, potentially looking at post-secondary education, and then ending somewhere in adulthood with retirement, maybe in one's 50s, 60s, or even 70s. But we believe there's value added for both the individual and the system by looking at the experiences and the drivers across the lifespan. So given the time today, I'll cover most of these at a really high level and work through them pretty quickly. But each stage is important and likely has many other additions and opportunities for us to further discuss. So this is not intended to be all-inclusive, and it's primarily based on our experiences in Douglas County, but many of those will work in any community. So I welcome any feedback and input after this and offline. If you have things that you would like to add to this model in terms of supports with the early childhood professional life cycle. So let's start with childhood. So when you think about experiences, and I'm talking about the early childhood professional when they are a child. So their experiences, hopefully, are a high quality care and education environment. That maybe they are a big brother or a big sister, and they have their first opportunities to help care for someone younger than they are. We would hope that maybe some of their first core memories are of an amazing caregiver or a preschool teacher. And these experiences create positive feelings around these environments and the people in them. And so what drives them to provide that care when they're in childhood? Maybe it's out of need. Maybe mom is busy with the baby and needs someone to help or occupy a toddler, or mom is multitasking and needs you to help support or watch the baby or play with them. Maybe they enjoy reading and teaching a younger child something new, which can also bring a sense of accomplishment and pride. So there are informal supports that help create these opportunities to care for younger children. Informal play groups, neighborhoods that may have younger children, extended family. And then there are, of course, formal structures, current systems that support that as well. High quality education environments like Head Start, opportunities for additional support through parents as teachers, Tiny K, mothers of preschoolers, sibling course through the local hospital where future big brothers and sisters get to learn a little bit about what it means to have a baby and care for a baby. And then we start thinking about possible future system supports. What types of environments could support this type of experience in childhood? For example, multi-age classrooms where older children are able to help support and even educate younger students. This may be happening in other communities across Kansas. Right now in Douglas County, this is definitely the exception and is through our private early care and education programs and elementary schools, but it's something that's being discussed even in our public school system right now. And then what are the outcomes from this childhood experience? They have positive social and academic outcomes from a high quality environment, and they have positive memories of early childhood professionals and those environments that they were in. Moving into adolescence, while a teen may still be engaged in caring for a younger sibling, they also have the opportunity to come up with some more formal structures. Maybe they begin babysitting, which provides a unique opportunity for them to begin to interact with individuals outside of their own family model. they have the opportunity potentially to volunteer and have more responsibility is given to them, and they're able to accept at this time in their lives. But if we look at the drivers, there could be now a financial driver to provide care in early childhood in the life cycle, because this is an opportunity for some independence. It's a flexible first job for individuals. Hopefully there's always going to be an aspect of enjoyment and potentially a vocational calling. So they might even see the opportunity of making it a career. And the informal supports that help make these opportunities possible, again, are neighborhoods, extended families, faith communities where older parishioners are able to support in the daycare, in the Sunday school environment. And then there are the current system supports, so some structures that actually begin to come into play to make this more likely. There are high school courses in child development. We have a teacher cadets program at our college and career center, which allows for CDA completion upon high school graduation. There's also babysitter training through Parks and Recreation, and CPR training through community programs that increase the quality and capability of the adolescent while they're in early care and education environments. But let's think about the future. What are some things that we could do and implement in our systems that could make it more likely that an adolescent is going to have these opportunities and exposures? Making sure that we expand those opportunities to receive the CDA access, because right now it's within a small entity within our school system. It's not necessarily well publicized, and making that more available to more high school students. We can also take a look at how can we provide some structure to our babysitting environment with our adolescents and our younger college students who are looking at opportunities, maybe just to provide occasional care, weekend care, but being able to provide some structure to that and some guidance for our community. Right now, it's often very challenging to find a high quality individual that can provide care. We usually go by word of mouth from our peers, but providing some actual structure to that where we could help connect families with adolescents who have gone through these programs and have had some support. So we're able to make sure that there has been some vetting that has happened. Also, right now, you never know what someone's going to charge when it comes to, or what someone will pay for occasional care when you're in an adolescent. So looking at providing some community guidelines based on their experience and level of expertise, but just trying to provide, again, some of those supports that may not exist right now that would make it easier for someone to engage in early care and education, even during their adolescence. The outcomes of this stage are obviously financial independence, early entrepreneurism, the opportunity to structure and be their own boss, and probably the first professional references that an adolescent will be able to secure can come from these relationships with families and or faith communities where they're providing these services. Moving into young adulthood, this is a little bit more of what we envision a typical professional pipeline or pathway with opportunities for post-secondary education, but you also have those individuals who may not opt for post-secondary education, or if they are, maybe they also have a young family and they have their own children. They're balancing work and education. They are struggling with their own childcare and education search experience. And the drivers at this point of time, if they choose the college route, perhaps oftentimes it's they want the college experience or there's societal pressure for the college degree. But we also know that there's going to be increased earning potential with that degree. So there are lots of different drivers towards the college route. But we also know that oftentimes the driver in early childhood is their own children are in need of high quality regular care. That's a significant driver. The financial cost saving by caring for one's own child and then inviting other children into a home-based childcare environment. But we also hope there's still enjoyment and vocational calling at this time. When we look at informal supports, we know young adults, college students, there's a demand for more qualified occasional care like nannying or summer care. And it's interesting because this is when the generation begins to have their own children. And so they become much more aware of early childhood and the challenges that might surround finding high quality care and education. So obviously there are some current systems and supports in place that help individuals either afford additional education or to help start their own business resources, provide referrals to their own early childhood environments. But we want to talk about future systems and supports. What are the possibilities? What are we dreaming about in Douglas County? And one of those is through our Early Childhood Community Center, the Provider Academy that we're developing, but we're also looking at the Children's Cabinet and the professional pathway and financial incentives that could go along with both of those. Providing financial support to receive a bachelor's degree. Right now, the programs definitely are supporting early 2 years of community college, but finding ways to support that entire bachelor's degree experience. We want to be, early childhood professionals to be able to be employed in the field during their own educational process and field work. Oftentimes in educational programs, when you are doing your field work, you are not able to also have a job and or work in that environment where you are having your field experience. And we want to make this easier for individuals to continue to be employed in the field while they are finishing their academic programs. We also want to provide guaranteed employment in the field during college. We see this as an opportunity to help create a second and third shift workforce for our community. When we're looking at college students who may be pursuing a bachelor's degree and have a typical student schedule, looking at ways that we can utilize and match those individuals into programs to support second and third shift care for our community. We want to make sure we can provide guaranteed pay rates at $15 at a minimum and raise the bachelor's degree level early childhood professional to make sure it is at least equivalent to the district rate of a kindergarten teacher. We want to find a creative and collaborative way to provide health benefits and retirement benefits. And I know this is a big challenge, but there are a number of systems that are already in place that can help make this happen. If it's not the state, it should be the county. If it's not the county, it should be the city. If it's not the city, it should be the local school district. If it's not the local school district, we should be able to find ways through professional associations. One of the ways we're exploring is the possibility of reduced Chamber of Commerce membership and an association health insurance program through the Chamber of Commerce. So there are ways and systems that can engage with us to make these happen. Looking at retirement benefits as well, looking from, again, that same pool of possible collaborators in that. We also want to see that early childhood professionals receive free childcare and education for their own children in a licensed facility. And that does not need to be the facility in which they work. One of the benefits would be they could have some choice. Oftentimes, maybe if they're providing a pre-K curriculum and they have infants and toddlers, what are their options to make sure that they have those options and they can also choose for their child to be cared by another high quality educator and professional. So what are some of the outcomes if we look at young adulthood and these future systems and drivers? Financial independence, again, early entrepreneurism and increased levels of education and quality across the board. Also increased capacity because we would have individuals who could go into early childhood spaces and know they'd be able to make a living, as well as They could make a choice that wasn't necessarily through a position provided through a school district. Oftentimes, that's where we find our most educated early childhood professionals in those spaces because they can't afford to start their own childcare facility or provide infant care and education or toddler care and education. Then we move into adulthood, and things shift a little bit because the experiences are different. And that includes their own children are probably now past early childhood age. They're also starting to think about their future financial security. We would hope they'd begin thinking about that in young adulthood, but oftentimes it's now, once your own children are grown, that you start really pondering the question about what that looks like. The drivers for being in the profession during this time obviously are financial. You may have increased earning potential because now your children are no longer in your care, so that it increases the number of spots in which you can bring in other families. And you could also have the opportunity and time to focus on your career. Whereas you might have been too engaged in early childhood and raising your own children, but you now can actually look at this as a professional and a career opportunity to expand upon that. Again, we always hope there's enjoyment in a vocational calling. You know, and there are some informal supports in place in this phase as the generation ages. Hopefully, they're still engaged with an educational cohort at whatever level that happens, but that they still have connections with their peer groups. But that also the early childhood professional community, making sure that they are engaged in professional associations and that there's value added for them in those professional associations. We know many home-based providers feel a sense of isolation and connection to the field as a whole. So we want to make sure we have the opportunity to, again, build upon existing systems and supports and look at future systems and supports. So some things that exist right now are obviously grant opportunities to help expand and improve upon their childcare environments. Professional associations, conferences, continuing education, childcare aware is always a big partner of ours in helping support and help those individuals throughout their professional lifespan. Here's where we start thinking about some interesting future system supports. A salary scale based on education and years of experiences, which we know we've looked at in the children's cabinet pathway, looking at ways we can value both of those things. But that would be supplemented by, again, by government, whether that be state or local or county. We look at professional pathway, again, plus incentives, moving along that pathway. Provider Academy will have an ongoing cohort engagement and peer support. So if they go through the Provider Academy and have experiences with us, then we will continue to re-engage them in that space. Serving as a host site for field experience. Right now, almost all field experience for students who are at the University of Kansas happen in center-based environments. And looking at the opportunity to get individuals some exposure to home-based providers. Shared resource contracts and shared services agreements to make running a child care facility more affordable, giving them the opportunity to buy in bulk as a community of early childhood professionals, giving the opportunity to share services like accounting services, legal services, trying to find ways in which we as the Early Childhood Community Center could create spaces in which that cost could be absorbed, subsidized, and then make it more accessible and available. We also want to look at the minimum quality requirements and incentives for continuous quality improvement and provide a robust provider resource library. So individuals at this point, maybe they've been in the field already for 15 to 20 years. This gives them the opportunity to change up their programs on a regular basis, to have new curriculum, new advancements in the field without having to invest their own dollars in that environment. So when we look at the outcomes of this stage, again, financial independence, business stability, being able to make sure that they've been in the field long enough, they know they have a stable childcare environment and education environment, and that they know they have families that are recommending their services to other families with young children. We increase the quality because we can continue to have that ongoing engagement that goes beyond continuing education units, but also is additional supports, as well as a stabilized capacity for our county, looking at the fact that if we can keep these adults in the field through this part of their lifespan, we have new young professionals coming up through our provider academy pieces and making sure that we're increasing capacity across the county, both in center-based and in home-based care. Now here's the really fun stage, and I've got just a couple minutes to cover this. This is my favorite because I oftentimes think we don't look at late adulthood. What happens when an individual is ready to retire from the field? Their experiences during this part of their life may be health issues or a desire for a reduced workload and schedule. Maybe they have their own grandchildren, which one could drive them to potentially stay in the field, but it also might mean they want to spend time with those grandchildren. So those drivers, maybe they are staying in the field because they have a financial need. Maybe if they have health insurance benefits, they need to retain those health insurance benefits. Hopefully they have some prestige within the field because they're known in the community as a high quality provider. And possibly they want to care for their own grandchildren in the environment, which would be a reason to stay and engage with the field. Again, oftentimes it's vocational calling. But there are informal supports here. But we think about at this point in an early childhood professional's life, there aren't a whole lot of things that are new to them in terms of additional supports. We look at, again, some of the existing systems are similar to what they were before. We really haven't added much to the system at this point. But our future system and supports, we want to provide the opportunity for the early childhood professional to have a phased retirement. Looking at the fact that most professionals do not just quit their job one day. One day they're working full-time, the next day they're done in their profession. We want to provide phased retirement opportunities. And that is definitely something that a salary scale based on education and experience, we often know individuals, if you've been in the field longer, that salary is there for you. And we want to make sure that individuals are able to stay in the field as long as they want and choose to. We want to make sure they have ongoing engagement with the professional pathway, the provider academy. But here are two big phases that we want to be able to provide supports, and that's succession planning. Being able to serve as a matchmaker between a retiring early childhood professional and an upcoming young professional. Doing that through our early childhood providers, our provider academy cohort groups, giving that opportunity to even potentially have individuals co-teach for a period of time, which eases the transition for the children, the families, and the providers. And also providing transition assistance. So being able to help that up and coming professional work through the stages of licensure, making all of that is in place so there can be a smooth transition and succession plan for children who are in care if the families choose to do that. It's definitely something that I think right now we're not able to provide this type of support, but it offers an opportunity for the provider to have some say in what type of environment is coming up next for the children and families that they care about. We also want to look at phased retirement. So once we go through this succession planning, either that professional can stay on in a reduced capacity, or they have the opportunity to maintain access to health insurance benefits by becoming part of a mentor, coaching, and high quality substitute pool. This is what we envision, is that this is how we could have the most qualified individuals serving as a substitute pool for our county, which we know is a need, giving them the opportunity to continue engagement, control the number of hours that they would be working and the days and or times they would be working, giving them the quality of life and flexibility they may not have experienced while they were running, particularly if you are a professional who is running your own home-based care, to be able to have the flexibility to do this, and then being able to provide that flexibility to the next generation. This is when the retirement benefits would obviously kick in. And we would love to see some value added for remaining and retention in the field. For 25 years of experience in the field, you would look at your grandchildren being able to have free early childhood care and education. Having that supported through any number of ways, including all of those entities I mentioned before, as well as looking at, there can be cost sharing for these things across those entities. It shouldn't be any one entity that covers all of this, because it should be a shared investment, because it has a shared benefit across the board. So what we look at in terms of outcomes, the increased quality of life, a reduced workload, field loyalty, multi-generational impact, volunteerism, you keep them engaged. So even after they're done with the contract work, but they can still choose to volunteer because we've kept them engaged. Reduction in care gaps, that means there aren't going to be transition gaps for families. It means early providers are going to have their a child care pool already there for them without having to have that reduction in income while they find families to fill their slots, and more stable capacity for our entire county. And I know I've taken more than my time, I apologize, but there are system and infrastructure outcomes too. Elevated the profession, we would elevate wages through a shared community investment, increasing quality, recruitment, retention, peer support, professional engagement. Ability for those with a bachelor's degree to choose early childhood environments that are not based in a school district, because they could make a living and have that same equivalent of income. Reducing isolation for home-based professionals, and the multi-generational impact to it. And it also increases capacity to support the economic development in our community, because we will have a childcare capacity that meets the need. That was a lot. So I know we probably don't have time for questions or comments, but if we do, I'd love to hear them. All right. Well, you can reach out to me at any point in time if you have an interest. If you're like, whoa, you're missing something, you're missing this needs to be there in terms of a support or a future system dream, then please make a connection with us at Community Children's Center. Thanks.
Kim, thank you so much. I really could relate to a lot of the information you were presenting as a farmer provider for many, many years. So I'll have Megan put your contact information in the chat so that everyone can reach out to you as needed. And thank you for being here today. And Jenny, you're up next. I know that we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm not sure what your plans are, but I would love for you to do as much as you can, and then we'll definitely plan on having you continue to come back and join us in the future as well.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, no worries on the timing. I was actually writing a note to you, Kim, in the chat to not rush. Thanks still for having us come, everyone. I'm Jenny Flinders. I lead the Our Tomorrows work that we do at CPPR at KU with the Children's Cabinet. And what I thought I would do today, actually, instead of some sense making, like some of my colleagues have been doing at these webinars, is really timely and connects with what Kim just shared, which was so neat and exciting to hear about. And that is a big shift that we are about to make in the Our Tomorrows project. And that is a change in the survey and the focus and to childcare, and hopes that we can support some of you out there that are doing all of this really important childcare focused work. So you can go ahead to the next slide. So just real quickly, so that you we're all on the same page here and understand a bit why we're making this transition. So in 2019, we had this first version of Our Tomorrows, collected almost 3,000 stories, and really those stories and the patterns that they yielded and showed us were primarily used in the PDG grants needs assessment, PDG meaning All In for Kansas Kids, needs assessment, and the strategic plan that I think many of you have seen and referenced and been a part of. And we also had that Zero Zeros campaign. We really wanted to make sure that we heard from every county in the state. So we managed to make that happen in 2019, and also sponsored funding for 49 action labs. And then we did this 2.0 version that launched right at the cusp of COVID in March of 2020. And so that framework, and by framework, when I say that, I mean it's the questions that someone sees after they share a story at the link. So we did, to date, as of yesterday, we have just over 3,400 stories. And you all who have shared that and participated in Our Tomorrows have really supported lots of different COVID-19 response decisions and policies and programs, everything from getting out the Tech for Families work to this shift that we're all making now in realizing that childcare is so important for us to focus on right now. And it looked yesterday like we've heard from 91 counties, so not quite the Zero Zeros campaign, but pretty close, and sponsored 34 action labs in the past. It's really almost 2 years now, but so here we are in 2022, and we are making this big shift in how we really use Our Tomorrows to support you all in the work that you're doing, and to sort of seize the moment that we're all in at the state level, which is to push for all of the childcare changes and supports that we know we need in the state. You can go ahead. So I did throw in just a few things to set up like why we're making this shift. I think you all probably know that, but in the framework that we use right now, we do ask a question about what is disrupting or what's a barrier to helping families thrive. And just cutting the data the responses that we got from 2020 to 2021, I mean, you can see childcare issues are rising. At the same time that we, at least within this story bank, have maybe addressed some of those tech issues thanks to some of the outcomes of this project. And, some of the healthcare concerns have dropped a little bit while mental health is on the increase. So we are really using not just the stories that we get, but the way that folks who participate and share stories are coding and what they're telling us about those stories. We're using that data to help inform shifts in how we do this, and also how we work with the state partners and all of you local partners to make it useful and relevant. Go ahead. So just a few other things about why childcare and what we're looking at. So in that 2.0 database of stories, some shifts we've seen, you can see just differences in what childcare providers and those who are affected by childcare issues are really experiencing. So this is a question that's asking about, do you ask for help? A first thing that you do, or it's a very last thing that you do. And you can see that, for instance, when we look at those who are having financial issues, it's really hard to ask for help. When we look at those who are having childcare issues, there's this very broad range of how people either feel comfortable or not asking for help. And that matters for what we do in the next phase of this childcare work. Go ahead. And then looking at 2020 and 2021 again, it's that same question about asking for help, but some shifts, right? In service providers, childcare providers who in 2020 had a bigger spread in whether or not they were going to reach out for some support to 2021, this last year, where I think we see a shift in a real moment to seize of people ready to provide help, get help, and to make some changes together. Go ahead. Trying to go fast, sorry. So 3.0, you might hear it called that. For now, it's also going to be a childcare framework. And so we're going to focus just on questions, stories, and subsequent questions and patterns related to childcare. We're going to do some rapid sense-making cycles. That's one thing that we're most excited about, because that means that for those of you who are doing all of the good hard work in childcare, who are providing childcare, who are accessing childcare, we want to work directly with you. And that is going to lead to that third point, which is increased access to stories and patterns. I know for some who've been working with us in the past years, it can be hard to get what you need to support the work that you're doing. We're really going to try to make a significant effort through these focused cycles to work with you all, so that as you're collecting stories, we're also getting you what you need. And then same as always, really here to enact that systems change together. Go ahead. Okay, so things that we're hoping to get out of this. First of all, we made this a 3-tiered framework survey. So we have, it's the same structure with different language and tailored questions for families, individuals, community members, anybody in a community, providers, and sorry, phone is ringing. Providers and those working at childcare centers, and then state, county, local leaders, so that we can really hear from everyone across the stakeholder spectrum. So we are asking questions about things like, what communication channels do families and providers trust the most? What networks and resources do you all have or not have where you live in Kansas? What barriers are there that go beyond slots and costs? We want to hear about those too, but we've built this really to hear about the things we don't know to ask about. How are families weighing options versus what they need versus the current reality of this post, but not really post-COVID life that we're in? What challenges are providers and center administrators facing in terms of staffing and retention, safety, quality? What does quality even mean? Professional development, what does that mean? What do people want most? What might help keep more providers in the profession? How supportive of change are different leaders in the system, and where can they best focus their efforts if we've got limited attention and resources and money to make these changes? So where do we dig in first, and so much more. So those are the things that we've been asking ourselves, we've been talking to a lot of you about, and are hoping to learn more about through this. Go ahead. So as I said, really here to just preview that and say that we want to work with you. We're excited about this. We have the links just about ready to go live. I know I've been in touch with a few of you, but I would love for any of you who are interested in really digging into this with us, helping us pilot some of this and gather stories from your staff or your communities, the people you work with and help. Please, my email address will be here at the end, and we'll put it in the chat. Reach out to me and let us know how we can support you and how we might work together, how we can turn around stories and data pretty quickly to address not just what you need, but maybe what changes occur in the work that you're doing in your communities. And then also how can we get that elevated up to the state to make the changes that we know we need. Go ahead. Yeah, so it's jflinders@ku.edu. We'll put it in the chat as well, but please reach out, and I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more from us in a number of places soon.
Jenny, can I just ask out of curiosity, like kind of what was I'm assuming it's just the critical nature of childcare and what the last 2 years have been like, but what was kind of that process of shifting from 2.0 to 3 and the focus going almost exclusively to childcare?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Hannah. It's really a combination of wanting to shift not to childcare, but to these rapid focused cycles. So being able to not have general information about everything, but to get really rich stories and information that we need about specific areas or topics. And then that in combination with, for childcare specifically, being more attentive to what's happening and what the opportunities are at the state and national levels. And right now, childcare is a big thing. So sort of seizing the moment, knowing that if we do this now, there's an opportunity to really affect the changes that are happening. But knowing that we're going to be able to shift to things like mental health or education or whatever you all tell us and what we're hearing in the stories as we go.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I did put your contact information in the chat, and I think that these two topics today from Kim and Jenny really matched up well together. And we're excited about the work that Our Tomorrows is going to be doing and how we can maybe see more of that and get more involved in the future. So look forward to that. So that wraps up our webinar for today. We thank everyone for joining us. We always want to remind you of some upcoming meetings that are happening. I mentioned the recommendations panel meeting on this Friday, March 11th at 9 o'clock. So you're welcome to watch that on our Children's Cabinet YouTube channel. Our next bi-weekly webinar will be on Wednesday, March 23rd. Please always reach out to Hannah, Megan, or myself if you have topics that you're interested in or have information that you would like to share in our webinars or the weekly emails. And our next Children's Cabinet and stakeholder group meetings are scheduled for April 1st, and you can register for those. We're putting some information in the chat. So again, thank you for joining us. I have a couple of minutes. So my closing words for today are a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says, "Our life is like March weather, savage and serene in 1 hour." And so I think we're all experiencing that day by day as we have started the month of March. And it sounds like it's going to happen again in the next 24 hours. So everybody stay safe and warm out there. And we always love having you join us for these. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. And thank you to Kim and Jenny. Their information was very valuable today. Bye, everybody.